Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Mamma mia, stai in lasagna? Tu go!
I'm gonna name you Garfield.
Let's get it!
Good morning.
You deserve to be seen with somebody as fly as me. Somebody.
We're gonna need the big scale!
Does she need to announce it to the whole office?
Say when.
Never, John. Bury me in cheese. Life here is pretty near perfect. Little did I know, it was all about to collapse. Odie, I'm dreaming again. Slap me across the face. I think this is a case of mistaken identity. You must be looking for another gorgeous, lovable kitty cat.
Hello. This is Adolf, and I have with me Jacob.
Hi, everybody.
And today you are reviewing the new animated Garfield movie. It's a 3D release, so let's talk about the 3D aspect first. How was the 3D in Garfield?
Super disappointing. It was surprisingly mid.
That's, for animated movies, it's, fairly easy to do it, so it's kind of surprising to hear that.
Yeah, it's just, it should have been better than it was. The opportunities were there. They either didn't care, they were in a rush, or it was just, maybe they were 3D immune. I don't know. It was just super mediocre 3D. It didn't need to be in 3D at that point.
And this was DNG animation, right? It wasn't DreamWorks or Sony?
No, it was released by Sony, but it was made by DNG and DNEG, and also like a few other smaller companies. But yeah, it was surprisingly thin because they had done Ron's Gone Wrong, and that one had pretty good 3D. So I don't know what went wrong here.
Just, I guess, the lack of effort, I suppose.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's just a Garfield movie. It's, I mean, I think it kind of had like a similar style to the Peanuts 3D movie.
I like the Peanuts 3D.
I mean, I did too, but like the 3D was kind of, I mean, that one actually had better 3D than this one, but it was just still kind of like trying to replicate the 2D panel style of the comic strip, but like it didn't really succeed. I feel like, I mean,
Okay, because comic strip has always been very basic in how they design their panels, and the story being pretty straightforward and simplistic, obviously to make it easier to read for kids and to not have to have all this action. So there's basic depth here, or is it pop out or anything, or is it just?
I mean, like there is like depth constantly, and it looks really nice. Especially if you like kind of point towards infinite point in the horizon. It's like it kind of goes on forever, but like pop out was almost non-existent, and it's a real shame. There are several opportunities to do it, like when Garfield's flying through the air, they could have had him fly directly at the camera or something, and they kind of did a sideways panel where they didn't really provide much depth or pop, or there were scenes with rain, and like the rain didn't like fly at you. It was just kind of like barely eking out the window, the screen area. It's just like, oh, you could see the rain kind of layered a little bit, but that's really all they did.
And there's like a scene with a bunch of drones and train stuff. Those aren't cool in 3D?
Yeah, I mean, like the depth is there, but like the drones don't enter the audience aspect. It's just kind of more depthful, and yet again, nice. But like, I wanted to like, oh, Garfield's bouncing in between the layers, kind of coming out in the screen and coming out in the audience. Just they didn't really do that, and it was a huge missed opportunity. In fact, the only real like pop out stuff was there's a scene that you kind of see in the trailer where he's imagining being buried with cheese, and it wasn't even coming out. It was going into the screen. So it's kind of a reverse pop out, but it was just so mid. I didn't care at that point. It was so late in the movie.
Okay, so what's your score for the 3D aspect of Garfield?
A solid 5 out of 10. Very mid.
Okay. Now let's get to the film itself. So, what's your history with Garfield as a character?
Oh God, I grew up loving Garfield. You know, I watched the cartoon show Garfield and Friends. I still love that show. It's one of the better, like, late 80s, early 90s cartoon series, I feel, based on a comic strip. It's a really good show, and I used to read the comic strips all the time in the paper, or the compilations in the, like, Scholastic Book Fair and stuff. I really enjoyed Garfield, and I even watched the 2 Bill Murray movies, but those were really, really bad. So I have a pretty good history with it.
Okay. What's the story here?
Surprisingly, it's a heist film, but not a very good one.
Okay.
So Garfield starts off with him as a little kitty, lost in the rain, left behind for his father, and his father seemingly abandons him. But it kind of comes back later in the movie that he doesn't really. But anyway, he finds John at an Italian restaurant, and he starts eating Italian food. That's where he loves lasagna. And cuts to 5 years later, he's still living life with John. And one day he gets kidnapped whenever he gets hungry when he is asleep, and there's like somebody kidnaps him. 2 dogs working for a cat. Her name is Jinx. And she kidnaps him to draw out Garfield's father. And she essentially wants him to steal milk because apparently Jinx and his father Vic worked together, and he left her behind because she got caught at this farm stealing milk. And so it's just really stupid plot essentially, but they have to steal like 2,000 pints of milk because of what she wants. But it's just essentially a ploy to get him arrested by the pound, so he can feel her pain that she went to being locked up for like 5 years. It was just a really dumb story, really dumb.
All right, and Chris Pratt is Garfield. How's Chris Pratt in this?
I mean, okay, the performance is fine. Chris Pratt, he's likable enough as an actor, personality. Like, I won't get in all that, but he's just not Garfield. He's not droll. He's not like sarcastic or anything, like, or as witty as you would with like typical Garfield. Like, as bad as the Bill Murray movies are, the Garfield movies, at least he sounds like Garfield and he feels like Garfield with like the dry wit and stuff. But Chris Pratt should have been like a dog or something. He should have been a dog. Like, if Odie had a voice, he'd be a fine Odie. But Odie is like just a dog in this movie.
Now, the great, the wonderful, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Dang it. Sam Jackson is here.
Yes, Samuel L. Jackson is the father, Vic. And he actually does a pretty good job. But, like, I think he should have been, like, also kind of a different actor because, like, I mean, I kind of get it being, like, a streetwise cat, But it's just, like, the personalities don't really gel to be, like, Garfield's father and son, like, according to like the comic strip rules at least. But in the movie it kind of works, but it's still different.
All right, what about the rest of the voice cast? Are they fine or any standout?
Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso is probably the best performance because she's just kind of having fun being like the over the top villain.
Okay.
But the Nicholas Hoult as John Arbuckle, like the character's barely there. They do nothing with John, but he is super annoying. That's another standout, but for the wrong reason.
Now, in your written review, which is now exclusive for the Patreons on Patreon, you mentioned the one of the worst aspects of this movie is the product placement. Please tell me more about that.
Oh boy, the product placement. Okay, so even though they don't show like none of the apps, like in that aforementioned restaurant scene where like John meets Garfield for the first time, I guess it was either like the owner of the restaurant or whatever, she hands John his to-go order of lasagna, and she's like, "You should come with the day at some time. You should get on Bumble or one of the other dating apps that's owned by that same company, and you should spring for the premium package so you could get seen more." And and then you see Sony headphones, you see Heinz ketchup, you see Olive Garden bags in the refrigerator, which is kind of odd. You see pot chips with the Garfield logo that's already out in stores, which I don't know why they did that, because you see the Garfield tail and everything on the bag. It's just egregious. And there's a few more other product placement thing that's just so egregious. Like, I could live with the Sony headphones, but everything else is just super dumb.
It's like in your face too, I guess.
Yeah, it is so there. It's so obvious that it's placing products. It's just sickening.
So it's not as sickening as Slurm.
Slurm, it's highly addictive.
No, I would rather have Slurm, because at least you're getting an addictive good product.
Slurm, it's highly addictive.
I mean, I kind of have like a mixed feelings about product placement. If it's really obvious, it's annoying, but if it's just like a prop that's there and they just happen to be drinking a Coke can, it feels natural and works. But if it's, so obvious that, hey, look at this delicious Coca-Cola I'm drinking, then that's like really annoying. So
yeah, it's just like, the Sony headphones, it was like, I can live with that. People would have those. It's not like an obscure brand or anything for electronics, but like having, like, in the movie, you have that local Italian joint that he orders food from, and that's where those drones are from. He orders it, it's there, but then why does he have an Olive Garden bag in there if they're, I get it, it's Italian food, but why order from there when you got a much better Italian restaurant that's local? It's just really dumb.
Okay. So let's wrap up here. What you give the whole score for the movie itself?
I was almost going to go a 4 out of 10, but there was a couple moments that I kind of laughed. So, like, yet again, like the 3D, it's mid, a 5 out of 10. It's just so forgettable, so dumb. The kids in the audience liked it enough, but I don't think they're going to, like, think it's like a Disney film where it's like memorable or classic. It's just bad. 5 out of 10.
All right. I guess it's going to be it for us. Unless you're a patron on Patreon. Well, if you're a patron, stick around for your bonus features. You can find 3D or 2D on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and more. Just look for 3D or 2D. Links are in the info box. If you want to send us listener mail, our email address is email3dortwo@gmail.com. Thank you for either listening or watching this podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.